Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast here with Jessica Bun Bun, and this is our reaction and review for Death and Other Details, Season 1, Episode 4.
hmm
Who is Viktor Sams? Like, who is he really? What makes him tick?
And is it actually a him?
No, like,
Listen, we've said a lot on this channel that Catherine is easily the biggest burning suspect here. I mean, like, oh my goodness, every episode they're just putting more smoke on her.
yeah, like there's a real case to be made with that Catherine is actually Viktor Sams. Like I know
Mhm.
Layla said, it's a him. Like I understand all of that is sort of out there.
Yeah, it
But
is, but I mean, like, it could easily be someone, trying to disguise themselves as a him. We've seen Catherine sign Lawrence's name to docs.
this is what makes I think this show so interesting, where it's like, oh, here you guys go. We're gonna bring our own sort of like room service tray to you as a viewer. We're gonna give you some
Mhm.
answers. We're going to give you, a little appetizer over here, the truth about Jules. But have you guys out there seen the meme of like the waiter coming out with the platter and he's just like, here it is, and he lifts it up and there's nothing underneath it? That feels like where we are right now when it comes to like the actual mystery of who killed Keith, aka Danny.
Yeah, because this very much does now feel like there is some sort of connection to Imogen's mom and what happened back then. And if that's true, there's only kind of a few suspects. I mean, it's feeling a little more like it's connected, but that doesn't mean
Yeah.
100%. All theories are welcome here. None are wrong. I mean, we're right in the middle of it. Nobody has any real
No.
answers.
And that's a part of the fun. And
Yes.
we're gonna have a lot of fun here. But before we do, hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any more coverage we have on Death and Other Details through the entirety of this season. We're having so much fun covering this show.
Let's talk about Winnie. We might as
Okay.
well just get straight to the meat of it all, that she, had said that she had this alibi with her sister. Turns out her sister was with Llewellyn and all of that magic that was happening over there. But that it was Winnie that had actually asked her sister for the alibi, and it wasn't the other way around, because the sister was hiding what she was doing with Llewellyn and her, off-hour activities. And they set up this whole sort of ruse to try to get Winnie, to be like, oh, we've caught, the killer. It's your sister. And she just came forward and was like, actually, it was me. I did this because, Keith was a jerk. And, people with money who are jerks, they all just deserve to die, kind of thing. And I was like, wow, that feels really weak.
Yeah.
And it kind of was. But at the same time, it now seems to be connected to Viktor Sams, as we learned from Layla, and her connection to Danny, actual Danny, that she called him Danny. She is absolutely working with him. And maybe it was during the time where Rufus was kind of indisposed and not feeling himself, and Danny was continuing on. You always need an assistant, and maybe it was Layla.
I mean that just makes a whole lot of sense. That like, everything about Keith and Layla's relationship was all like some sort of ruse where they could never let anybody in on what
Mhm.
exactly they were up to, what exactly they were doing. I still wonder like how much of Layla's paranoia was real. I think some of it was. Like I don't think she's like completely making up every part of herself out there, but there's a legitimate question still about how she's acting and why she's acting the way that she is.
I agree. When she was talking to Rufus, she was just fine, of clear mind, basically like, yeah, like Winnie would have been somebody who's, working for Viktor Sams. This is all about Viktor Sams. It is not about really Winnie or anything else that's going on. Like Danny was looking into Victor. Clearly, Layla was looking into Victor because she
Yeah.
knew Danny's name, Victor's name, all kinds of stuff. So, it's all about that. And it seems that that's the tale that they're spinning right now, this idea that Winnie was just one of his followers out here killing Danny because Danny's getting a little too close.
I think that's the biggest question I have with all of this was like, was Winnie a follower because she chose to be a follower, and she was just like, "Oh, you know what sounds interesting? You know what Victor's gonna really be pleased by? Me hiding under this cart and going out and taking out Keith with a harpoon gun? Like, is that something that's really that great, or was she doing it because she felt threatened by it and had to?"
Yeah. Okay. Tinfoil hat. Everybody get on
Yeah,
your
all right.
theory hats right
Okay.
now. Victor Sams is on this boat. Victor Sams is on this boat.
Okay. Let's dive into a couple of things when it comes to this. Like I have been on this Catherine camp since the start of the season. Like I still think there's a very good chance I am just going to throw myself overboard by the time we get to the finale because it feels too obvious, and yet at the same time
It's so
I
obvious.
I just like I've committed to it so much
Yeah.
that I can't walk away now. I'm already in it. And so with that in mind, I just got to keep on rolling with it. And here's the thing that I spent at least 10 minutes on earlier today and feel kind of stupid about it, but I did it anyway. Okay. Is Victor Sams an anagram? There's nothing more that these mystery shows love to do than play around with anagrams. Like here's a big question.
Like Verna Raven
Yes, like have you
over on the Fall of the House of Usher. Yeah, they do.
has anybody actually played around with anagrams as much in real life as these shows do? Because I'm pretty sure the answer to that is no. But anyway, I was trying to think a lot about, okay, could Victor Sams be some sort of anagram for Catherine? And here's what I've come up with. I cracked the case, everybody.
All right.
Cat, which is short for Catherine, is in there. However, that is
Mhm.
entirely incredibly flimsy. There's no Collier in Victor Sams. I kind of wonder, okay, then what's Catherine's maiden name? What's Catherine's
Mhm.
middle name? And
Mhm.
when you take out the letters that spell cat from Victor Sams, like there's still some vowels in there. There's still you could theoretically come up with a word, but I kind of feel like more than likely it's not an anagram for Catherine at the end of the day, but I still kind of feel like Victor Sams is an anagram or representation of something. It's just that, and I know I'm going to get a comment in here from somebody whose last name is Sams, and they're just going to be like, how dare you? I am Bob Sams. I've never heard the last name Sams once in my entire life. I've heard Samson, I've heard Sims. I have never heard Sams. It just something feels off with it.
Okay, let's talk more about Catherine.
Okay.
So we did see this sort of back and forth between her and the governor of like, hey, like I feel like she thinks that the only super PAC investors on this boat is Lawrence and Catherine. And she thinks that they set her up to take this fall for this murder where she was like, could it be you guys who sent me to send out this bar cart and now you're setting me up? All this because I didn't push a policy through, which seems kind of a bit out there, flimsy motive. You're
Yeah.
going to kill somebody over that. And then what? Then you might put in a governor who still doesn't do what you want. You're just going to keep on killing them all. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? I think that there has to be another investor because she doesn't know who all her investors are necessarily. So I think there's another one that's on the boat. However, they want us to think that it's Catherine. And
Yeah.
the reason they really want us to think that is because they had that conversation. And then later she gets this email, from Tripp's room showing her and Tripp together and basically being like, put your marionette strings back on and do what we say. And they're the only people that had that conversation. It's so obvious that I'm kind of sitting back being like, if it's Catherine, I'm going to be kind of disappointed unless they give me a really good motive, because not doing what I want and putting through, a policy I want feels flimsy to me, but that's just to me. Because why are you going to set the governor up for murder that could go back on her and blow up her entire career, which then you might not be able to get any policies through, when you had these photos that instead you'd be able to be like, put your strings back on, you're going to do what we want? Why didn't they start with that? Why would they just go straight to murder and then go to, we have these photos of you? That's why I still have my tinfoil hat on.
All right.
We know that the Chuns now very much deal in secrets. And I think that they get a ton of money from secrets. We saw a little bit about that throughout the season, but it was very much confirmed in this episode that the grandmother deals in secrets, as we saw her talking to the Kingmaker. So my theory is that the Chuns are involved and that they are actually the ones that are the donors that are on board and that they were threatening the governor with those pictures. I actually think it's them. I think it's just the show can't be that obvious halfway through.
I think there's some smoke around that idea. I mean, we even see in this episode that Celia is aware of the affair that's going on with Catherine and the Kingmaker.
Yep.
And like they have access to a lot of information somehow. Like how they have access to all of this, like not all of it's like explicitly clear here.
There's a little bit. I mean, not all of it is explicitly clear,
Yeah.
100%. But we did see a little of how she manipulates these situations where she's basically like, I know about you and Catherine. Oh, you're going to do this to me? I'm a priest. You can see it on her face. And she's like, so? He's like, well, what is it you want? I want more information. So it's kind of like she is just a collector of information
Yeah. And information, knowledge is power, everybody. And
and money.
it's a real there is no more powerful motive in the world of this show that has already kind of set up these themes about, class conflict and
Mhm.
money and influence. Like one little thing about this email that I found incredibly amusing, and I'm kicking myself right now for not writing this down. Like because I paused it when I saw this email that came into the governor, and like the email account it was from, it was just something like
You're-
yourfakeemail.com, or it was something really dumb like that, and it got a really big laugh out of me. That's like, okay, Mr. Secretive Person, your email address is at yourfakeemail.com or whatever it is. Like if I was ever in like some sort of like, I am not in this, I'm making it very clear. If I was in some sort of like shady operation, I would totally email people from yourfakeemail.com. But
That's
no,
funny.
it was one of the funnier moments of the episode to me. Like I think whatever is going on here with the governor at this point, I think she's probably had things that have been hung over her before on a few different occasions. Like she's clearly finding herself being pushed in all these sort of different directions, but it all
Mhm.
kind of does go back to this question again where, okay, if you already know that you have a lot of people pulling your strings, you have a super PAC, you have all these donors that you're responsible for, why are you getting involved with Trip in the first place? I understand that, maybe you're lonely or maybe you think this is a vacation, nothing will come out. I mean, this would hardly be the
Yep.
first time a powerful person did something that they really shouldn't have done. It's just like, that this guy is a part of a powerful family. You clearly know, just judging by the behaviors that we saw in those photos, this guy's a mess. We also saw at one point in this episode this guy trying to, also one of my favorite moments of the entire thing, like try to explain like the blockchain and all of these other things involving a certain kind of currency. And I'm just thinking, being like, yeah, nobody understands this. This is the point. It's all ridiculous.
Well, I also think part of the showing this that there's these pictures, that there are cameras in the room. We get to everything that was going on with Anna and Eleanor and them, reconnecting. And we know that their relationship was pretty deep in the past. I mean, Anna has said, I cried for months over you. Like, I couldn't get out of bed. Like, my heart was so broken. Like, why did you leave? And Eleanor gives this, like, kind of flimsy excuse where she's like, "Oh, I went to the desert to paint." It's just like, okay, sure. Yeah, you went to the desert to paint. That's fine. But did she, or was she off gathering more secrets for her family? Because this whole scene felt like a setup where it was like, yeah, they were stuck in the room together, but maybe it was like, okay, I'm going to use this sort of to my benefit, where I'm going to get Anna on tape, having this affair, even if it was a one-time thing, because we just saw the governor and Trip having the same thing happen where pictures were pulled from this footage. Is it possible it's a setup to then further hurt the Collier family?
And he knows that Anna's in an emotionally vulnerable spot at the moment. Like, there are a lot of questions about where's Layla, what's going on with Layla. Eleanor and Anna have a really extensive history. There is just something very odd about that conversation, whether it is that she went off the paint for a really long period of time, or that she says that, so many of my paintings were of you. And like,
Mhm.
yes, there's a certain part of that that can be very, very romantic. It's
Mhm.
just the fact that all of it is coming out at one time and one conversation, and the specific timing of it. Like, I love everyone. Like, I want to believe in love. If they're meant to be, they're meant to be. It's just, this is the sort of show where I have Rufus is just like on my shoulder here, being just like, trust no one. Details matter. That is a terrible impression of Rufus, but like he's there, and I can't ignore him, and I can't ignore how paranoid it makes me feel about everybody. So no, I don't 100% trust what Eleanor is saying or doing in this moment.
Okay, let's talk about the Jules storyline.
All right, all right.
Where, a lot of it really just brought out what was going on with Misko and Llewellyn. Like, that's really where it pulled together to be able to get to Winnie and everything, where we had these people that were, stowaways on the boat, and the young daughter had seen something, which then made all these connections. And, it was a good storyline in that way, where it was starting to connect things, and we got
Yeah.
to the whole Winnie reveal. And Llewellyn, this was okay. This is my beef. I'm putting on my beef hat.
Okay, the new hat.
Llewellyn was in this closet tied up for 3 days. 3 days.
Yeah.
You can only go a few days without water before you're dead. So if he's in there for 3 days, he's not bounding out of there the way that he was, giving lip. He's fine, like no problem. He would be dehydrated. He would be on death's door. Like, you can only go a few days without water. So I was kind of like, this just doesn't feel right.
It was really, really silly. Like I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like it wasn't. Like, it was all really silly. I will say, okay, this is why I have a few really, really crazy theories that are just like bouncing around in my head
All
here.
right, let's hear it.
This is my crazy Llewellyn theory. What if Llewellyn is Viktor Sams? And what he did in this moment is he needed to construct an alibi. What better an alibi than something like this, where he is in the midst of a particular session, shall we call it? And because he is engaged in such behavior, shall we call it, I don't think a lot of people are going to have a lot of questions about this. A lot of people don't want to know a lot about this. So I think they're just going to be like, hey man, you're into whatever you're into. That's fine by you. And they're not going to sort of question, okay, did he just come up with this because he wanted some sort of alibi that nobody would question or think a lot about, when he very easily could have like ordered Winnie to do something in advance and sort of prepare. All they're going to think about with Llewellyn now is, okay, this is the stuff that Llewellyn is into. And it's just like nothing else matters anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if this case is connected to the past, there's only a few suspects. There's only a few like adults in the room, because like Trip and Anna and Imogen, they were all kids. Like none of, Eleanor, they would all have been like 8 or 10 or something like that. So it's not any of them, unless they're being like influenced by Viktor Sams. So if that's the case and Viktor Sams is all connected, seems like it is.
Yeah.
You got Lawrence, who's barely on this show. You have Catherine, who it's very obviously her, if that's the direction they're going in.
Yeah.
Llewellyn, he would have still been around at that time, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And the Chuns, because the grandmother would have been still operating at that time. And earlier on this season, one thing that came up about Viktor Sams was that he was also very much into the business of secrets. And we know that the Chuns are in the business of secrets.
I think there's a really interesting case that they're connected to a long ago. And like, if they can sort of spell it all out, it is more interesting to me than the idea that Catherine is Viktor Sams. And I'm still on to Catherine Hill. Like, I'm not climbing down the hill here. I'm just thinking, how can the show do things that are really interesting and creative? I will say, and this is both good and bad sides of the same coin here. I think the good side of the coin is I'm glad that they sort of honed in on who Jules really is. Yeah, we don't know his real name or whatever, but ultimately, I'm glad that he's kind of off the board. That's like, okay, Jules really isn't involved in this. Seemingly, he was just trying to help these people. The
robber with the heart of gold story.
Okay, this is the bad side of the coin, everybody. I just don't care about the Imogene love triangle thing that's happening. Like, I really don't. Like, yeah, she had some chemistry with Jules. She's got some chemistry with Sunil. Like, there's like that conversation that's like, oh, maybe she's meant to be with Sunil. I don't care. And that's not, an insult to the actors or like, I'm not saying there's no chemistry or any of that. It's just like, I'm not watching this show for romance. Like, I want to know clues and mystery and all of that other sort of stuff.
You should have put your beef hat on
Okay,
before
I'm
that.
sorry. You were wearing the beef hat.
I am still wearing the beef
Okay.
hat. Let's talk about Hild and how she needs to not be on the show. Listen, we're 20 minutes
Okay.
in now. The first half of this show, this episode, barely had any Rufus in this at all. Like, he is part of the reason I'm enjoying the show and watching the show. He's the detective on this
Yeah.
show. I really feel like what they needed to do was have some sort of reason to not call in Interpol and just be like, okay, we actually have this detective, this world-renowned detective on the boat. Let's see where he can get with this, because maybe Sunil doesn't want to deal with problems, and he'd be like, okay, maybe this detective can wrap this up. There's enough like suspension of disbelief going on in this anyways, that if they had just sold me that, they could sell me on that with like a couple of sentences of why Hild does not need to be taking over the investigation. She's in every scene. Rufus is in the background. It's kind of like, I'm not interested. Like, it was fun at first to see her. I was like, oh, it's, it's Donna from Only Murders in the Building, and she was great over there. But it's like, she just doesn't need to be this involved.
I think they felt like they had to have some sort of like, I guess, quote unquote threat to Rufus's investigation. And it's just like, I just wonder if she's the right character. Like, that's just sort of the thing to me, is that she just doesn't feel like she meshes in well with the rest of the show. And we've talked about this a little bit in the past, that I think this show is really fun, but I do think it's kind of trying to figure out like, how comedic does it want to be? How serious does it want to be? I don't think it's fully like honed down on the tone, and it's just sort of like Hilda's just sort of out over here, and a lot of the rest of the show is just like right here. It's kind of a weird juggling act. But now let's go to Weird Town, everybody, because I've got a couple really, really weird theories.
All right, I've taken off my beef.
Okay,
hat.
yeah, I don't know if you want to wrap the beef hat in tinfoil here. You'd be saving it for later. Okay, weird. All right.
Oh, it's a weird hat.
The weird
all
hat
the hats are coming out today, guys.
Just a bunch of like tendrils going all over the place.
Oh, God.
I've got like a soda can on the side. Okay, here we go. Weird theory number one, and these are technically kind of connected, but you know what? We're just rolling with it here.
Mm-hmm.
What if Viktor Sams is Imogene's father? Like, because here's the thing. We don't know anything about Imogene's father.
No, I don't think he's even been mentioned on the show.
There is nothing that these shows love to do more, insert Star Wars, than having, like, somebody's father turn up at an inopportune time and sort of throw everybody for a loop. And I think I'm with you that Viktor Sams is on the boat. Like, I'm not really sitting here and being like, I believe this, but it did cross my mind. It's just this. If Viktor Sams is not on the boat, they have to have some sort of pre-existing relationship with these characters that really make them important. Because if it's just like Walton Goggins just shows up in episode 10 and,
hell yeah.
I know, like, none of us are going to be mad if it's Walton Goggins, but it's just like, if he just randomly shows up, it's just like, hey, y'all, I'm Viktor Sams now. And it's just going to be like, great, we got Walton Goggins, but there's no connection to anything. So I kind of did wonder that, just because then you kind of though get into the, okay, well, why would he want to kill, Imogene's mother? Like, there would have to be like some sort of really, really crazy and dark reason for it.
Maybe she knew too much. Viktor Sam deals in secrets. Okay,
this is the other theory I have here. This one's probably even more absurd, but you know what? What if Rufus is Imogene's father? And like, I thought about this just because, like, she has to get this, like, intuition and knowledge of crime solving from, like, somewhere. And, maybe they're going to be like, oh, it's genetic. It's in her blood. But honestly, I'm going to be really annoyed if they do this, because it just feels like, okay, then Rufus may know this and he's just kept it from her.
Why?
Yeah, and then he's basically just, like, abandoned her when she was a child. It's just like, that's
dark for no reason.
Yeah, I don't want that. I'm going to be upset if it happened, but it did cross my mind. It all comes down to this. How hokey does Death and Other Details want to be at the end of this? Like, I'm fine with a little bit of hokiness. Like, I love cheese. However, you can overdose on cheese. Like, you can have too much cheese and then you're sick for a long period of time.
No. Give me all the cheese.
Okay, no. I don't want to be sick. I love
just want a nacho cheese fountain in my house. All day. I just stick my face under it like this.
I have fun cleaning that up. Like, that's the only advice that I can offer at that point. It's just like, give me a little bit of this. Don't go full hokey on me. But anyway, okay, I'm done with Weird Town. I'm walking away now.
All right.
Okay, well that's what we got on Death and Other Details, season 1, episode 4. I mean, it's a really fun show. Like, is it perfect? No, but it's okay. You know, it's the first season. We're kind of still getting to know everybody.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had a couple beefs with this episode, and we are still getting to know everybody, but it feels like there's a couple people that, are starting to be fleshed out as like pretty good suspects. Obviously, Catherine.
Yeah.
Where's Lawrence? Like, that's getting a little bit
Yeah.
weird. Like, why is he just disappeared like this? The Chuns, they're definitely on the board. Like, it's getting interesting. Llewellyn,
Yeah.
like, the Kingmaker, he's old enough to have been there back in the day. What the motive would be, I don't know, but
there's a lot of people now, and we're starting to get more motives, which is always exciting. But we're gonna keep this train going, or I guess keep this boat going through the rest of this season. So hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss any of our coverage. Click on that card right there as well if you want to watch our most recent reaction and review. Thank you to our patrons also, and be sure to join our Patreon for exclusive content. We got a link in the description below.
Yep.
And we'll see you guys here next time.